this is probably the best APS-C manual lens that you can purchase for your camera, period. For around a 37mm, 35mm, 40mm focal length in a small profile, compact, you can't beat it. The value is what I look for in lenses. Value and character.
So with all that said,
what's up, y'all? This is Wayne Mustafa, Artworks of Wayne Mustafa. I am the Imagineer on Instagram, and today I'm finally out in the city, and I want to make this lens review that I've been trying to make now for over a week and a half. Now, I haven't really been out yet to really take advantage of this lens, but today I've had some opportunity to take some photos and some test shots of my first impressions of the 25mm APS-C TTArtisan f2 lens, a lens that costs less than $100 and has been making me smile with every shot that I've taken. All right, so if you guys want to see how this looks, stick with me, and I'm gonna take you along the streets and show you what this guy can do, and probably why this is probably first impressions the best compact APS-C lens you can get for street photography. All right, let's go.
Now, the reason why I said I've been trying to make this is because I've really been trying to make this. I've had this lens now for about a week, and I've been redoing my street photography setup because I wanted to get more compact. You see, I really enjoy shooting with a small setup, something compact, something easy to carry. Hold on. And what I mean by low profile is not being sneaky, but you really want to be able to, for me at least, capture things and keep them candid. Like the second that you pull up a camera, you take a photo with people out in the streets, it kind of destroys the scene because it's no longer candid. You don't care. Out in the streets. It ruins the composition because people tend to see you, you know what I'm saying? So you don't capture that honest moment. I like to capture honest moments in the street.
which one? Which one? Somebody see the bar. Where is the bar? Left or right?
You want to kind of stay candid because the second you pull out a camera, if you have a big setup, right? And usually I shoot with the Sony A9s, or that's my favorite street camera, to be honest. You kind of ruin the candidness of the scene. And see, what I mean by this is that if you look at this setup, it looks really nondescript. People don't really anticipate anything when they see this, right?
Show your mind. Very simple. Open the box.
So what I've been liking about this lens in general is the fact that it's so fucking small. See, I could have went with a couple different lenses, the 35, 0.95. I could have went with a 1.8, but it wouldn't have been this small. This is small. Like without the actual lens hood, this is the setup. Check it out. It's literally like, it's tiny. It's like the size of the kit lens that came on the Sony. It's actually smaller. It's all metal. The actual focus ring is rather stiff, which is a kind of good and bad that I'm kind of getting used to it, because when I want to focus from near and far, I'm running into some issues, which I really don't like. But an excellent part about that is that I know that once I set the focus, like if I zone focus, like I've been zone focusing, which I never fucking do. I never stop down the goddamn lens ever. But when I put this bitch on F4 and leave it, it gives me this huge field of view, or not field of view. It gives me this huge depth of field that most shit is in focus. That blows my mind. I even on vintage lenses, I'm not confident to zone focus sometime, and I'd rather just use my focus peaking and shoot. But with this lens, even if I'm almost in focus, it's acceptable because the way it actually renders noise is amazing. This to me is like a new vintage lens. It gives me the same feel and flair of vintage glass, but with new mechanics. And the problem with putting vintage lenses on your cameras, and that's what I've used primarily of my field photography journey, is the fact that I like vintage glass. It's cheap. I won't say it's cheap. It's inexpensive to purchase. You can adapt any old lenses. The collection part of it is always fun. But the problem is the adapter that goes on your camera. The adapter is usually, especially with Sony, as big as the lens, depending on what lens. So it's hard to get a pancake size setup. And that's why I've gone back from my full frame to APS-C. But yeah, I don't know what I just said, but I said something, I think. Now, most of the time, I would have this camera on top of this camera to show you the field of view while I'm shooting. But I'm not going to do that because, honestly, this little setup, this is the Osmo Action 3, which is quite small. It's pretty much the same size as the camera and the lens that I'm shooting with. So I don't want to add the extra weight onto that when I'm trying to be discreet. Now, discreetness has never been my most important tactic in street photography. Street photography is more of the sleight of hand, looking where you're not shooting, getting close. And the 35mm, this being 25, actually gives you an equivalent focal length at like 37. So I'm not complaining. But you can still get close enough to somebody and frame off to the left or right. They not really perceive that they're being snapped and take a photo of them. The drawback, and it's not the lenses issue, but more of the way I shoot in this camera, is that, yeah, the shutter does fire. Now, for let's say 65-70% of my photography, street photography journey for that matter, I've been shooting with the shutter. You hear that shit in public, you know, like this sound here, you know, so it kind of gives you away. Also, like, I guess what's different when I'm shooting like this while I'm walking, and I have I'm gonna call it a talking shutter, right? Is the fact that if I click in front of somebody that I see pretty quick, my hand motion and stuff is the way you can give away a tell of me taking a photo, right? And then the shutter alerts them, which I don't like. But the easier thing to do is to kind of stop and take the shot. Because what happens is you can wait for somebody to walk into frame instead of shooting them when you just see them, right? So I missed the silent shutter, but I'm gonna show you something also. The minimum focus distance. Now, this lens is big enough that I can kind of focus with one hand, which is pretty dope. And I'm gonna show you what the minimum focus distance is with this camera while shooting this guy. Watch. This is what I love, right? Because what happens is, even though you shoot wide, it's hard to get depth of field, right? It's hard to get a blurry background when you're shooting with something wide. But with this, like, I'm about 9 inches away from the camera, and this is what you get. That's wonderful. And the awesome part about it is it does this weird vintage swirl of bokeh. But that's another cool thing that this lens does. So let's keep going. I'm gonna shoot a little bit and I'll come back to you guys in about 10-15 minutes, okay? See you in a second. When I first got this lens, I was kind of skeptical because I purchased the TTArtisan's lens a long time ago and I really didn't like it. It was like really horrible. So I was kind of reluctant when I first purchased it. I was kind of scared that buying these Chinese or Japanese, or I don't know which ease it is, lenses, I may get a piece of crap because it was so cheap. Or not cheap at all, it was inexpensive. But I'm realizing that times have changed. It's not the same game anymore where you purchase an inexpensive lens and you may not get quality. I think it's all about markups, tariffs, and actually doing your research before you purchase it. But let's get to the point. This lens is actually excellent. The way it renders images is really unique. It renders like a vintage lens, but with a brand new body. It's really good. Now, I did some research and I was wondering, okay, what is this lens design based upon? And through my research, it said the closest thing that it was comparable to is like the old Minolta 45mm, which I have the 45mm, but it doesn't have this minimum focus that this lens does. Some of the key points. The minimum focus distance on this lens is only like 9 inches. Excellent. By only being 9 inches, it allows you to blow out the background on any image that you put close to frame. So which means I look for a lens usually that is kind of universal in the compositions that I can compose with it, meaning I should be able to shoot from here to there and get good images. Sharpness is not really the most important thing because in new lenses you usually have this tactical sharpness that kind of makes everything look boring. That was my problem with the 35mm 2.8 from Zeiss. It was too perfect. And the minimum focus distance was crap, meaning it was like maybe, I don't know, 1.5 meters. I don't really know, but it's like 40 centimeters. So I couldn't get close enough to anything to really blow out the background. Yes, you can get good bokeh blur with the new modern glass. Okay, forget it. It's not the point. Back to this lens. Overall, this lens is excellent. If you're looking for a small, compact, well-built, bokeh blur, a little vintage swirl, go out and buy this lens. Period. If you have issues with manually focusing, I don't think it's a problem, because if you have a camera with peaking, that's fixed. And I say that's fixed because anything that I had in peaking came out acceptably sharp every single time. Now, I have this issue sometimes with these modern cameras, right? Well, you'll put your lens in manual and then you get peaking on, and then you think you got something sharp, but then it turns out it wasn't sharp. So you blew your image, which fucking sucks. This lens, I didn't have that damn problem. I didn't run into it. Anything that was halfway peaked, that's the best way to put it, was sharp. It rendered freaking well. I couldn't believe it. And even if it's not sharp, you're left with this soft type look. Even the way it renders noise. I took it out at night, right? And even when I shot at night, I was blown away that the fact that these images didn't come out noisy. When I posted them online, people in the chat or in the comments were like, how are you getting such good clarity with an APS-C Sony a6000 10-year-old sensor? This was the same question that I was asking, because I was amazed that it actually was coming out rendered well. So, I mean, I really have no complaints. My only complaint with this lens, and it's not even a complaint because you only see it when you're trying to shoot something that's super squared off, and you can kind of fix that in Lightroom or any of your image editors with the profile correction, is that there's a slight distortion, a roundness on your actual composition on some of the pictures that I've looked at so far. Other than that, you can't beat it. So I think when people ask me now, and I've been saying it for the last 2 days after kind of just taking a few test shots, but taking this out today, I think I'm convinced that this is probably the best APS-C manual lens that you can purchase for your camera, period. There's AF lenses out there you can grab, cool, but for around a 37mm, 35mm, 40mm focal length and a small profile, compact, you can't beat it. The value is what I look for in lenses. Value and character. So with all that said, stop watching. Go ahead and go back to your card or wherever you found this lens and hit the button. You will not be, you will not be disappointed, okay? So with that said, y'all, I'm gonna take my ass inside because it's a little cold, and I'm standing out in the street just talking to myself when people are walking by, and I don't know, they get close enough, I'll take a picture of them, blow out the background, and get a little swirl behind them with my 25mm TTArtisan F2 metal compact best street photography lens that I've played with in a while. Yeah. So if you like this content, you want to see more, hit that subscribe button, follow me on the social medias. And this is William Mustafa, Artworks William Mustafa. I am the Imagineer on Instagram, and I will holla at y'all later. Deuces.